Shanti, and good evening, everyone, to our Saturday online workshop series here on Brahma Kumari's Los Angeles Zoom. So we welcome you all to our today's session, which is on taking charge of my mind. So we all know our mind plays these roller coaster games with us. It takes us for a ride, and we go through several emotions due to our mind. And those emotions can be of fear, anxiety, worry. So there are a lot of games that our mind plays with us. And in today's workshop, we're going to learn on how we can control our mind and even discuss solutions on how to make our mind our friend, make it peaceful and stable. And the facilitator of our workshop today is Santi Navila. He has been practicing Raj Yoga meditation for over 20 years. By profession, he's a creative producer and an organizational strategist. Extremely creative, and he comes up with lovely topics for our workshops. So we see him often, and we get to hear his words of wisdom. So, Brother Santi, welcome, and over to you. Thank you.
Shanti, everyone. Hello, everyone. I hope everybody can hear me okay.
Shanti, yes.
Yes.
Shanti, yes.
Thank you for taking the time to join in. And please, I want to encourage everybody to feel free to really share their experience. Share their experience and share just anything that comes up. The only way that we can gain a lot of benefit from these sessions is if we all participate in the ways we can actually gift our thinking and our feelings and our experience, more importantly, because all of it creates benefit for each other. So we all want to create benefit for one another, and that's the way to do it, to share and to really trust in our experience in our life, and what these wonderful gifts that have come about through our lives. So also, this is a place of trust. So please feel free, and that this is safe space to speak your mind and to really share whatever is coming up for you. So thank you so much again for joining in to taking charge of my mind. It's a really interesting topic because there's a lot of, in the world, there's a lot of talk about the mind at the moment because a lot of science has become very involved with the question of what is the mind and where is it and how does it function, and is it something that propels itself from within the body, or is it outside of the body? So there's lots of questions about how does the mind function and what exactly is it. So I took the definition from the Webster Dictionary, and it describes the mind as the element or complex elements in an individual that feels, perceives, thinks, wills, and especially reasons. The second part of that definition is the organized conscious and unconscious adaptive mental activity of an organism. So if you notice, it doesn't really point to a particular part of the body where that happens. It doesn't say this happens in the brain. It doesn't point to a particular organ in the body. So it's just in general, this is the consensus. So it's very generalized because science and human understanding of what this idea of consciousness, this collective functioning that happens, but very little is actually known as to where it comes from. And there's different ideas about where it comes from, how does it work. And we're going to discuss one specific sort of ideology in which this might happen. And so we go further into what is happening in terms of the discussion in terms of neuroscience. Neuroscience is right now going through the process of, and has been going through the process of mapping the mind. So it's creating a map of the mind which indicates what actions it actually causes within the body. So some deal with movement, some deal with thoughts, some deal with physical, spatial perception, some deal with color. So there's all these areas of the brain that actually do that. But there's this invisible thing that scientists cannot explain, and they don't know what to call it, and there's a lot of hesitation to actually call it what many people have referred to as the soul, the consciousness. And so sometimes scientists refer to this phenomena as the ghost in the machine being the body and the ghost being the soul. And there's a discussion about material, which is physical, and then the immaterial. So there is this very specific sort of conversation that is happening of what is it that we can actually take measure in terms of our instruments, scientific instruments, and what is it that we understand that it exists, it's there, but we cannot measure it because it's not physical, right? So is the mind a part of or a function of the body, or is it entirely something different? And there's a lot of study actually at Harvard happening in terms of the benefit that meditation itself and the benefits of meditation and how actually it literally shifts, it changes the dynamic of the brain, it changes the functionality of the brain. It also changes its ability to become much more resilient. So there's an aspect of the act of meditating where it actually increases functionality and it increases the power to actually heal. So it's very interesting that this phenomena that cannot be explained through science has such a huge benefit, right? Because it's all beneficial. So it's a big question, and they've been studying. So if this invisible force was to exist somewhere, where would it be? And so the question leads us to this location where, in the spiritual world, it's known not only as the third eye, the aspect of the third eye, the location of the third eye, um, the place where we find the Shakti or the energy, the life force. So the location of this, of where where people believe the soul lies, is in the pineal gland. And that pineal gland is actually very interesting because it creates melatonin, and melatonin is also used to regulate the circadian rhythm, and the circadian rhythm has to deal with time, very abstract sort of phenomena. So it deals with time and deals with timing in terms of 24 cycle, but also the seasonal cycle. And the location of this particular gland is also right in the center of the two hemispheres. So it's ideally located in terms of its ability to access all operations within the body. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
So we go into this place. So now we know that there's a invisible phenomena and it cannot be explained through science, but scientists understand that it exists, right? But it cannot be measured. So the idea that this thing, which we all call, a lot of us call soul or energy, it actually, instead of actually the body having a soul, actually it's reversed. The soul has this body that's it's its instrument to actually operate in the world, right? So this life energy called the soul uses the physical body to operate in the world, to express itself. And it's very interesting because the definition in the Webster Dictionary literally describes this aspect of mind consciousness. So mind can also be equal to consciousness. So mind equals consciousness, right? So it can be the same. So the definition, it says the element or complex elements in an individual that feels, perceives, thinks, wills, and especially reasons. And all those aspects that I just mentioned in terms of the definition of what mind means to scientists and to the understanding of the outside world, it basically describes what the soul or the aspects of the soul. So we're calling this the anatomy of the soul. And you can see it as, these three aspects: the conscious mind, which creates thoughts. So here, thoughts are not created by the brain. They're actually initiated in the soul, in this part of the soul called conscious mind. And then the aspect of will, right? The will, the ability to discern based on who I am. And that's the intellect. It helps me decide, reason. This is good, this is true, this is false, right? So it helps me decide based on what it understands to refer to who I am. And then there's a subconscious mind, which actually stores memories, and everything that we've actually ever created in terms of thinking, feeling, and doing in terms of action is stored here. And so it's really interesting that this cycle of activity that happens within the soul is exactly how the mind is described, the definition. So in many ways, scientists do not want to refer to the idea of soul. So and in this particular fashion, it's basically referred to as the mind. So the mind can also be taken into what it is being described as. It's basically another word for describing consciousness. So all the activities of the conscious being, all the activities of the soul, all the activities which run the physical body, create this aspect that we refer to as the mind, but also this aspect that we also refer to as consciousness. So the consciousness, the collective aspect of this process is called, and we refer to it as the soul. And we're going to focus on how this idea of soul and its function and how we can actually use that in order to stabilize the function of processing life. So in life, we go through every moment and we have different experiences. And depending on how we actually relate to these experiences and how we internally process them, that determines the quality of our internal world. And in relationship to the external world, it determines the relationship that we have with the external world. So both internally, there is a world, there's a dimension of space, there's a dimension of time, and there's a dimension of relationship internally. And a lot of times what happens because of the way we are processing information, processing experiences, what happens is that the way I'm internalizing an experience is very different from what actually happened or what is happening. And we're going to go into that because our minds, I am a creative being and I am constantly creating. So it's really important because a lot of times we don't see ourselves as creative, but in fact, every action, even breathing, becomes creative. There's an art of breathing, right? There's an art of seeing. And we're going to go into the mechanics of that so that we understand that life doesn't just happen, right? Things in life are not just happening to us. And that when we take a certain intention, that we begin to participate in this process of creation in our lives, as opposed to being passive engagers, we become participants and also have a say as to the quality of that participation. So what happens if the soul sits in that physical body with the consciousness of itself? So I am conscious of that I am a spiritual being, a spiritual energy, which gives life to a physical body. And this instrument, this physical body, then I am using that physical body, I, the soul, am using that physical body to express and to experience in the world, right? And when that's happening, miracles occur because there's full alignment. There's full alignment in the soul in terms of acknowledging itself and also utilizing all of its power and its instruments. And the body is then remaining healthy because it's being fully energized by positive, empowering energy that is being generated by the soul. So these two organisms, these two properties are working together in alignment, and that's when we are fully integrated. We're integrated selves. We are fully engaged, right? So how do we get to this and maintain this fully engaged state? And when it doesn't work, right, when we're not fully engaged and we get into the state, which a lot of people are feeling at the moment, this sense of I don't know what's going to happen today, tomorrow, the next moment. I don't know what is going on in the world. I don't know what's going on in my head. I feel tired. So there's a lot of question, a lot of I don't know. And the reason why there's so many questions and so much confusion and so much anxiety is because there's not that alignment, that understanding of what's there, what's present. What is this that is this phenomena called the human body? What is this phenomena that's called life, right? We don't understand how to relate to it properly. And because that is the case, what happens is we become detached from our bodies, detached from the identity of I am a spiritual being. And that detachment causes us to begin to break down, not only in terms of the soul becomes weak, but also the physical body becomes weak, it becomes ill. So we're trying, the exercise here is to prevent that from happening, right? To diminish the possibility from that happening, because by understanding, by actually having the understanding, the knowledge, to be able to relate properly to myself, right? So do I know myself? Do I understand what my capacities are? Or sometimes I'm confused. Sometimes I don't trust. So it's about coming to that space where your understanding is so strong and it becomes stronger and stronger, not because of more and more knowledge, but simply because you begin to experiment, you begin to experience the knowledge. And so this is about experiencing the knowledge of the self, right? And when this stuff that clutters our mind happens, it's basically like a chariot being driven by horses, and the horses represent our senses, and each sense has its own personality, has its way of moving and going through the world, experiencing the world, and it wants to do its own thing. So when the life force, which is in the physical body, am unconscious, not aware of myself, the horses take me for a wild ride, and sometimes it can be very painful. And sometimes it can even overturn the chariot, causing injury, right? So these wild horses, these senses that this body has, overstimulate, it's like it's just happening to me, right? I'm not conscious of who I am as the rider, and I'm not conscious of my relationship to the senses. And so I need to understand what that is before the chariot turns over or the horses topple over each other, right? So I must free myself from just being an unconscious rider. I must become conscious of the fact that I am the one who's pulling the reins. And that's very important, understanding that I am the one who pulls the reins of my life. That it's not an external influence, but I am pulling the reins. I am creating. Because if we continue to work in that sense of the unconscious I, of not sitting in that seat of control of the soul, then what happens is that we begin to actually has anybody had the experience where you're working on a computer or you're working on a phone, and the phone is actually telling you what to do? Has anybody had that experience where the phone is actually prompting you? The next step is this way, and you should get this.
Yes, especially in driving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, brother.
Yeah. So what's happening there is that I am not conscious of the action I am taking, and now I have a phone telling me what to do, how to feel, what to buy, what to say, how to be in my relationships, right? And it's very interesting because when the phone starts to tell you what to do, it's the same thing as your body and your senses telling you what to do. So you're being directed, although you're present, because you're not acting out as the master or the one who's giving life to this phone, to this body, you're just taking prompts, right? So is your external influences prompting my thinking, feeling, and doing? Or am I actually thinking, creating inside and working out of that? And we have to pay attention to that because these are things that are very subtle. And especially in today's society, for the past year, we have been conditioned to think, to feel, to be, to relate right? So if it's not the phone telling me what to do, it's someone else telling me how to do and how to be and how to feel and how to live. So paying attention is my doing, my experience of life solely engaged by something else? Or am I engaging my life according to what I feel is the right direction? Right? So do you want the body to prompt you, the master to prompt you, the one who's in control, what the next step will be? So it's very similar. The phone is inanimate, but yet we're still following the directions of the phone. So in the same way, we're following the directions of our bodies, we're following the directions of our external influences, we're following the directions of these different aspects that exist in our lives. So becoming aware becomes even more important today because of the condition that we are existing in. And when everything else is telling me what to do, then what happens is that your internal system doesn't know how to function anymore. And it begins to break down because it becomes stressed, it becomes anxious, it becomes confused, it becomes sad. It loses its will, it loses its power. So we want to move away from that aspect of the body telling me what to do, right? But for me to take on the reins, of those wild horses and then pull them and direct them. And one of the first steps to doing that is that creating just as Harvard scientists have found the benefit of meditation and how it literally changes the dynamics of your brain function. It changes the plasticity of your brain, literally neurons. It lights up. When you are in a meditative state, your brain lights up. All these areas that normally would not light up begin to light up. So part of engaging this experience of I, the being who is in control, I, the being who is in charge of the system, one of the first steps that we all should take is creating a daily practice of going into that space of silence, that space of meditation, in order to go into that, it's called the bodiless form. And the reason why it's beneficial to go into that bodiless form is because it releases us from the relationships, from the connections, from everything that is external, including the body. Because the body is an external instrument for the soul.
Brother, I have a question.
Yes.
So when we're saying connect with your bodiless form, so how I can practice that in meditations? That becomes a bodiless form.
Well, basically, it's an experience that naturally happens. It's not something that you can do. It's when you're ready. It's like when I sit in meditation, I just go into it with the trust. But more importantly, not just with the trust, I go into it with intention. So one of the reasons this particular the Raja Yoga meditation is very specific, and it has a lot of power in terms of my own experience because of one main thing. You are training your system, you're training yourself to go into a meditation, into a meditative states, being conscious of the act. And what I mean by that is that I go into silence, I go into this meditation in order to create a condition of my facilities, right? So my conscious mind, my intellect, and my subconscious mind are activated in such a way that I am present. And I am in action. So we practice open eye meditation for a very specific reason. We want to cultivate the condition of awareness while in action. So as I'm walking, I can actually go into that state of meditation, that state of awareness, the state of being present in this physical body as I move through with the consciousness, the spiritual consciousness of who I am and my spiritual qualities.
Okay, brothers. Yes. So just to clarify myself on this, so when you practice meditations in silence, the like to practice a soul conscious, that's I the being, I am one who is looking or paying attention to what I'm hearing. It's me. So that's how I understand as a soul conscious. That when I'm present, cultivating that, I'm the one who is seeing, I'm the one who's listening with awareness. That's a soul consciousness. But when we're saying bodiless, so is the same thing bodiless when I'm the soul conscious, or it is something beyond the body?
Well, actually, whenever you refer to yourself as I, the soul, I'm speaking, you're speaking of that bodiless form. So one of the things that perhaps is the way I'm listening to your question is, how do I experience that? Literally, how do I experience that in a tangible physical form, right? So whenever I speak, whenever I use words to describe the I, the soul, already that is an activation of the soul itself in the awareness that that energy is there and that that is the energy that's present. Now, when you go into silence, okay, so there's two things happening. I am with my intellect and my imagination, I am creating the image of who I am. I, the spiritual being, I, the bodiless being. Now, when I sit with that image and that clear understanding of who I am, what happens, so as you sit there, what happens is that you begin to expand. So literally you feel that sense of expansion that goes even beyond the physical shell, that's the body. So the limitations of the physical form, you're moving beyond those limitations of the physical form. You're literally expanding. So you begin to experience yourself as energy, as light. And that happens naturally as you sit with that intentionality and you surrender to the experience. Now, how long or how often you allow yourself to engage that stage is really up to you. And it's a very personal experience. But it does happen and it will happen. So it's a matter of how uncluttered your system is from thinking, from trying to perhaps even understand the process. And instead of trying to understand the process, you need to sit there with the willingness to experience it as it happens. Just sit there and experience, be and surrender into the experience. And then there will be a time, and each individual will experience it at different pace, right? Sometimes it's automatic. All I have to do is literally go open or have my eyes closed and I'm in that stage. But sometimes it takes a little longer depending on how cluttered or uncluttered my mind. So it's really important to cultivate a clean mind in order to experience, literally have a experience from a physical space that bodiless form. Does that make sense?
Yes, brother. Yeah. So one word that is used before I like sit in the silence with the intentions or to surrender to the experience that we should be ready, and you use the word with clean mind. So can you just put some focus on the clean mind?
Yeah.
Because yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go further into that in terms of how do I clean up my mind, right? How do I keep it clean? What does that mean exactly?
Right,
It means that so here's another aspect of meditation. So the reason why you want to be practicing meditation on a daily basis is because you are creating the space for cleaning up, the waste, for cleaning up the cluttered, for cleaning up the stuff that no longer serves you. And what happens in meditation as you sit there in silence and you sit there with the right consciousness is that that stuff that has you trapped, these memories of the past which are disturbing you, these things of relationships that are troubling you because they're happening and they're right now, these are little wounds. So all this stuff that needs to be harmonized will start to appear in meditation. So it's nothing to fear. It's actually something to run towards because it's calling you to heal it, right? So it's this process of, so the reason why it wants to be healed is because the minute you start healing that stuff that's still troubling you, then the depth and the connection and the bond that you will experience with your essence, with that bodiless form, will increase. And also your ability to tap into the powers of the soul and those tools, those spiritual tools that are natural to the soul, then you begin to tap into them and utilize them to actually neutralize, harmonize the trouble, the stuff inside of you that's still troubling you. And it becomes the tool, it becomes a mechanical process. So I go into meditation. So meditation, a lot of times, meditation is thought as it's a process to go inward into silence and experience the nothingness. But here in this particular form of meditation, you go into the everythingness. So I go into myself, I surrender into myself, my conscious being. I surrender into everything that's inside of me. So my thoughts, my memories, my ideas, my stories, my myths. So in meditation, all these things come up. And sometimes good stuff comes up and sometimes troubling things come up. So clean mind means that I am taking the courage to face whatever comes up during my meditation so that I can clean it up, so that the purity and the cleanliness of my inner space increases. Right? And as those and as the waste gets washed away, you see the words in front of the screen that says awaken, purify, connect, release, balance, discover. All those things begin to happen. You build capacity, you build a positive, elevated perspective. You begin to also increase your sense of and relationship to peace, to clarity, to stability. It's a natural state for the soul to be in those qualities. Does that answer the question?
Yes, brother. Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Yes, brother. I am just wondering, so these are all the qualities: awaken, balance, and release, and all those are the signs. If you are experiencing, that means you are meditating correctly.
You know, these are just things that come up for me, and different things may come up for you, because when you go into meditation, it's a very personal experience. But these are general in terms of, yes, these things begin to occur. So if you are going into meditation and you are actually sitting in that meditation with intention and surrender into yourself, in that purity of mind, then what happens is all of these things plus more begin to actually happen. But one thing is for sure, you increase your connection with yourself. I, the soul, am fully aligned. I become one. So I no longer have the illusion that I am separate from myself, right? And what I mean by that is that a lot of us, because of what we've been taught, we have different aspects of our identity. So I sometimes believe that I am the father, right? So all these different things begin to disappear, and all you are left with is I, the soul.
Okay,
But
thank
all
you.
these different qualities begin to awaken as you throw away the waste.
Thank you.
So as I go back into the importance of meditation, meditation is very important for those things. It begins to connect you to yourself. It creates a space for you to increase your courage to be able to face and heal whatever needs healing. So all this dirt gets washed away. But it happens also because it's important, because you're cultivating a relationship with the pure self, the original self, but you're also, something magical begins to happen. As I connect to my original self, I also connect to the higher realm, which is God. If you want to believe it, if you believe in God, then that's what you're connecting. If you don't believe in God, then you're connecting to a higher realm. And what happens is that you're being infused with power. So in meditation, we sit, and it's very important to create a habit of doing it. And usually I do it a few times during the day, but also I go into conscious state of awareness, meaning I don't have to sit in a specific place, nor with crossed legs or anything. I just go into, I choose an awareness. I shift my mind into the awareness of the self, into a spiritual awareness. And I can do that as I'm speaking, or as I'm walking, or as I'm working, as I'm cooking, right? And that's the benefit of creating a practice which cultivates awareness in action. And
How long,
so,
sorry,
uh
how long we're going to stay in that state while doing the actions? It is very natural.
it really depends on you and how much cultivation you've created in terms of your strength to maintain that inner space. But if you come to if your mind is at peace, right, then you should be able to maintain it as long as you want. So it really varies on a day to base. It's not something that you say, I've achieved this and every day from here forward it's going to be the same. So every single moment there is a choice to stay in that space of power, or to allow yourself to move down into a lower state. So the choice is always there, and you must always exercise the choice to continue to evolve, right? So it's not like I'm going to achieve enlightenment and all of a sudden I will exist as enlightened. No, what happens is that you continue to choose and make the choices that cause the condition of being enlightened. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So the meditation is very important because it creates the right space and the right conditions for you, your mind, your instruments to actually work and function correctly, because they become clear and they become pure. And so it's important to do it at least twice a day, in the morning. And the reason why the morning is important is so that you create an intention. Today, I, the soul, or I, the spiritual being, I choose to create a beautiful space internally and also to create benefit in the world. So I'm creating intention. So I go into meditation to create and help give me power to sustain my intention, right? To be as I choose and to bring benefit into the world. So that's intention. And in the evening, it's important because what happens is during the day, you get engrossed in activity, and all this activity, it can be taking you up and down, and there's, were you in control during a moment, or were you not in control? Did you interpret this, an action or an experience in a way that's beneficial? So at the end of the day, it's very important to close the day, to take an account of your day, and you go into meditation and you look and you see what comes up. And then what happens is you take the time to look, to face, and to bring harmony, right, to those things that need a little bit of attention. They're troubling you, so they need proper perspective. So meditation allows you to create an intention, and then in the evening to heal whatever has happened in a way that is beneficial for you and everyone involved. So it's the power of meditation. Power of meditation is I sit, I surrender to myself, to my highest possible self, my original self. I surrender to my powers, my virtues, and I surrender to my goodness. And I have the intention of bringing that into the everyday world. So there's this beautiful aspect of intentionality where you are not just creating beauty and goodness in this little period of time of 10 to 15 to 20, whatever it is that you're going to last in meditation, and then just have that experience. What you're doing is saying, I want to take that experience and then I'm going to share it in the world, right? So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to go into a guided meditation just to give you an experience. Also, in this particular type of meditation, it's important for you to create an inner dialogue. So it's not just about sitting still and watching the scenes of the mind go by, but it's for you to have a relationship with yourself and to create an inner dialogue that's beneficial. And guided meditations are an example of how you can create internal dialogue. It gives you an example of how to produce an inner dialogue, the kind of self-talk that you're creating in order to bring and develop capacity. So we'll go into a little meditation now. So just sit comfortably. You don't have to sit in a specific way as long as you're comfortable and there's no restriction in your body, and just surrender into the experience.
Can I ask a quick question, brother?
Yes, please.
You said dialogue, talking to, for those who believe there is a God or a higher supreme, if I talk to God, is it a dialogue with him?
That is a dialogue too, yes. So if you are an experienced meditator and you've created an inner world already, and you have access to these different forms, then yes, whatever becomes natural for you to do as a form of empowerment, that's what you should be doing. But inner dialogue here is also just to create an inner dialogue, an inner remembrance. Because sometimes when my day has been a little bit difficult and perhaps I didn't create enough remembrance, what happens is that I feel like I have to remind myself. So I sit in silence and I begin to internally churn thoughts that help me remember, help me connect to my own powers. So I, the beautiful being, sit here surrendering to the moment with trust and full faith that all is happening according to time and space. I am filled with love and peace. right? So you create an inner dialogue. That's called inner churning. And you create inner churning in order to create a beautiful inner space. So it's not disrupted by the conditions of your day or the experiences of your day, right? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Sister?
Yes, brother. Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
Beautiful.
So I'm gonna just so sit comfortably and let's go through this beautiful guided meditation and experience what this type of inner cleansing and inner imaging can do for you. Just to start.
Experience the pull to go beyond sound. What a beautiful moment it is. Our habit is to go into sound. God is creating in us the ability to go beyond sound. And from there to come into sound. O mind, speak sweet words. Such a beautiful song. The mind speaks first. Then we come into sound through words. Sweetness. It must exist before we come into words, into sound. A clean and elevated mind. No effort. Only pure and elevated thoughts. Saints and sages wrote the scriptures, sitting in silence, with elevated, high-quality thoughts. Imagine the quality of their minds, rarely coming into words. Their thoughts, clear and deep in writing. It is easy to come into sound, into words. Go into the silent state of being a soul. Light, beyond the body, bodiless. Lost in the sweetness of God's love. From there, come into words. When you speak, those listening will also become bodiless. Light. Now is the time. Receive from God the gifts of love, peace, and happiness. The recognition of time. Remember God with love. Remembrance in our thoughts. The sweetness of that remembrance reflects in our words. We are merged in that experience. Those saints and sages did a lot of meditation with the aim to experience deep silence. With one glance in 1 second, God gave us that experience. Told us, peace is the garland around your neck. With useless thoughts, peace runs away. We take the words, the sound of others deeply into ourselves and let go of our inner peace. Don't allow yourself to come under the influence of your own mind or the mind of others. From just one thought, so many thoughts emerge, creating discontent. Free the self from the effort of trying to forget things of the past. Why remember and then make the effort to forget? Go beyond sound, beyond words, to receive the nourishment of silence. Then there is happiness. No matter what others are like, I have to give happiness. The sun does not discriminate to whom it will shine upon. It will just shine. The tree does not discriminate to whom it will give shade. It just protects. We too should not give up our qualities due to another person. A river flows and merges into the ocean. If the river stops flowing, rubbish accumulates as people throw waste into the river. A clean river flows constantly. Pay attention to the quality of your words. To go beyond sound is very beautiful. Into silence. And sweet words will emerge. So it's so refreshing to go into that wonderful space of just silence and that space of expansion. So the importance, I think this particular meditation, also this guided meditation, really impresses the importance of setting a stage, of creating an inner image of who you are and also the stage in which you want to play. And so setting the stage for your mind is very important. It needs to understand, first of all, who it is, the qualities that it wants to express, and also the kind of effect it wants to create, not only internally, but also externally. And one of the most important things to remember in setting the stage of the mind, which is very key. A lot of us forget that we are and that we have the capacity to change anything in our perception at any given moment. So it's not we do never need the permission from anything or anyone else in order to create that change. So it's really important in setting the mind to set that understanding deeply in ourselves. I am the creator of my internal experience. And it's very important for us to understand my internal experience. It doesn't say that I am the creator of everything that's happening outside that's coming towards me, right? But I am saying I am the creator of my internal experience. What's happening inside of me, whether it be in thinking or feeling or anything else that's stored inside of me, it is under my control. So I am the creator, and I always hold the power to change it. So it's very important for us in terms of creating the right mind, the stage, the conditions in the mind, is that for us to keep that rule is I, as the creator, I always have the power to change it, to change something that I feel is no longer useful.
Power to change where? I hold the power to change. Where to change? Just we're talking about inside or?
Yeah, we have the power to change anything that's in our internal space.
Internal space, okay. Yeah.
Yes, because the change in the outer space begins in the inner space, right? So my participation in the world is to shift and to clean myself up, because as I clean myself up and I transform myself, then I will begin to see the transformation also in the outer world. So as I change, as I transform, the world transforms, right? So keeping that faith that I am doing the work, and as I am transforming, the world will follow. So as I, the spiritual being, begins to go to its original state of purity, love, power, bliss, and peace, the world then will also return to that. So I have to do my part, my little tiny part, but a very powerful part in world transformation. So as I shift my internal experience, I also have the capacity to shift the external experience. So rule number one is I am the creator of my internal experience and always hold the power to change. So there's never a reason to suffer. So there's never a reason to suffer, because everything that we have inside is within our control to change it. And it's all about a relationship, the relationship I have to a thought, the relationship I have and created to a feeling, and also a relationship that I've created to a memory, a story I have created. And all those things are always in my power to change, to make them beneficial for myself. So to be present. So I'm setting the stage for this mind to function effectively, to function in a beautiful way. I must be present to the moment. I must keep my awareness and my attention to what's here and now. I must look at things just as they are without a need to change. So there's no judgment. I accept what's there just as it is. Right? So I am present to just what it is. I am present to myself, right? So the first, setting the stage for the mind, understanding that it always is required to stay present to the moment. Because if its attention is in the past or in the future, what's happened is I'm going to miss what's happening, what's important right here, right now. So always assure that your consciousness, your awareness remains present to the moment. Be in the moment.
Any tips to do this practice? This is very important. I understand. Any tips that helps be in the present right at the moment?
Yeah, so it's not just in terms of Buddhism, it's actually in terms of anything that has to do with clarity of the moment, right? So you have to be clear about what's happening here. And so your consciousness needs to be present in order to understand, to comprehend it correctly. So always be present to here and now. And then you also look at it to choose who you want to be in the moment. And what does that mean exactly? So if I ask, so I'm gonna take this into a little experiment. So I'll give you an example. So this is a form of setting an intention, right? Setting an environment for the mind to work out of. So I'll give you an example. So so I'm going to choose who I am in this moment. I am a pure soul, a bodiless being, eternal, whole, a world benefactor, right? So this is called self-churning. So I created a thought. I created this series of thoughts and conditions for myself. So not only am I identifying myself as a pure soul, so I have a quality. I'm not just a soul, but I'm a pure soul. And then I also have created beliefs about that soul. I am a bodiless being, so therefore I have removed the ideas or any connection to the body, and I have removed any ideas or connection to the world, outside world. So I am a bodiless being, right? So I'm eternal. So I'm not temporary, I'm eternal. I'm also whole. Everything that I require in every given moment is already part of me. I just need to connect to it, access it, and then use it. And my purpose for being here is I want to be a world benefactor. So I am bringing benefit to the world. So right there, I've created an entire paradigm for myself to function out of. Does everybody understand the word paradigm?
No.
Okay, paradigm means that I created a world for myself, an understanding with myself that I want to work out of. So now this is how I'm going to be. This is the condition of how I'm going to see, how I'm going to speak, how I'm going to listen, how I'm going to do in the world, right? So everything that I am going to act upon or connect to will be based on this idea that I am a pure being, right? So I'm creating a filter by which to experience life. Is that understood?
I think as time goes on, we will like if we try to apply into our lives. Guess so.
Yeah. So that's just an idea. So I want to go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is, Brother Ji, the thing is, if you're in an environment, a toxic environment where, you all the time now, for me, it's like God and me, it's me in the sense, not the body, you understand, right? It's the soul, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's what we have been taught. And we in a period of time, it comes into you,
Mm-hmm.
It's not the physical form. It's about me and God and having a conversation. Very peaceful, very happy, right? But I live in an environment where it's all the time gossiping. A gossips about B, B gossips about C, and it rolls onto me and says, "Oh, how did this go out of the house? How did the information go out of the house? Now I am clueless. I'm truly clueless. I'm not interested." But in an environment like this, how do I bring about transformation? I really want to do something good. I know it's happening. It's happening for the past 4 years, 5 years. But as a follower of the being in the BK family, and also if it is world transformation, how do I bring it on? Because I am clueless. I don't know what is happening in the world. I don't know about that one's conversation or this one's conversation, but it rolls onto me and says, somebody says, oh, you may have passed on the information. I didn't know.
Yeah.
How do I change? Yeah.
How do
So
we change? Well,
yeah.
basically so setting a stage for the mind means you're creating. Have you ever engaged in a contract, in an agreement with someone or an institution? An agreement, contract.
No, I not as such.
Okay.
But
Have you ever made an agreement in terms of an understanding of how you will do something? Like
we mutually, if somebody says, okay, do this for me, like I would like, in my mind, I would draw a picture and say, yes, I will do it to the best of my ability. That's it. But promise, if I promise somebody, yes, let's say if somebody wants me to water the garden, and I stick to it.
Okay, so you just use some very special words called "I stick to it," right? So you stick to what you say. And that's very
Yes,
important because that's just
I
an
hard.
agreement that you made that you're committed to.
Yes.
So in the same way, when I say I am a pure soul, then I am committed to being that no matter what the external world is like, no matter what the words are, no matter what the conditions are, no matter what the environment is, no matter what the time is, no matter what the season is, no matter, nothing matters except my commitment to being a pure being. And so therefore that commitment will help me see and accept and understand and relate to the external conditions that you're describing in a beautiful way. And one of the things that comes up for me in terms of what I heard you say is just pure acceptance that people are just doing whatever they can and the best that they can, and that's what it is. But if you want to be, as you said, good, is that what you said?
Yeah, and do good to the world too.
Do good to the world. So if you're committed, right, your commitment is to do good for the world, then your commitment is to stay away from gossip. So you're gonna understand that somebody's saying that, but you're not really going to take it into yourself, right? So you're gonna you're gonna listen to what's there, accept that it's being said, and just don't allow it to interfere with your internal space. Don't allow that to come into your space and then make it dirty.
Yeah, sometimes
Right?
it makes
So
dirt.
that's how it works. You have to, and we're going to go into that a little bit in terms of, first of all, you have to set the stage, but then also you have to be vigilant as to how you allow things to come in and what you allow to come in. Just because it's happening, it doesn't mean that it has to be invited into your own house, right?
Yeah, let things come and go, huh?
Well, you let things come and go, but you have a choice of what you allow in and what you let go.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
always be aware that it is my choice to let something in. And if I see that it's not going to be beneficial, that it's not beneficial for me or others, then I'm not going to let it in, right? Because I'm going to be committed to being good for myself and for the world.
Thank you, Chi.
So it's just a commitment. So what I want to do now in part of this exercise, that I want you to see, most of us are functioning in the world in a sort of mechanical way. You know how I said earlier, is the phone telling you what to do, right? So society operates in such a way that it tells us how to, it even suggests names that we should call each other, right? There's names out there that are being used a million times because it's just the right thing to do. So
we have to break away from all those ideas and we have to create our own internal laws. So what does that mean? Our own internal agreements. So when I create an agreement with myself, I have to be committed to living it, right? So what I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to imagine. Do you all have papers and pens or something you can write? Or if you just use your imagination to think this through. So just as I created a phrase that described my commitment to myself, I am a pure soul, a bodiless being, eternal, whole, and a world benefactor. I want you to think, if you were going to create an identity for yourself and that reflects your qualities, okay? It reflects your human qualities, your spiritual qualities, I should say. And I have this circle here with all these different virtues. So purity, love, power, bliss, peace. So there's a lot of virtues to pick one. So I want you to just pick one virtue. I choose purity. I want to be a pure soul. But I want you to look at the circle and I want you to choose one of those virtues that sticks out to you. And I want you to create a phrase that describes you as that bodiless being. Okay? I, the spiritual being. I want you to create a phrase that says, I, the spiritual being, I, the soul, whatever the quality is, and then describe a little bit more about your approach to yourself, the qualities of yourself, and then how you want to be in the world. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so just take a minute to just think about that.
I, the soul.
It's not just I, the soul, remember. It's important to think of ourselves not just as souls because that's what we are, but we need to give ourselves a quality so that we can actually increase our ability to make that quality alive within us. So choose a quality that really speaks to you, that you feel connected to, that you feel like, yes, I can certainly commit to being this today, tomorrow, the next day for my life, right? So pick.
Would an example be to say I am a loving soul?
That's right. Absolutely. That's a good example. Yeah. It's just about putting a quality before the soul so that you understand what type of soul you are and what quality you will be able to look out into the world with, what quality you will be speaking with, right? So we're setting the stage for the mind to understand who's speaking, who's listening, right? So I'm understanding who I am. So create a phrase that describes who you are.
Do we have to write more?
No, just that's all. I just wanted to make sure everybody had plenty of time. All right, so can somebody share your phrase? Your sense of yourself.
Loving angelic soul.
You're a loving angelic soul.
Angel.
Okay. And
Yes.
are you committed to live that out today, tomorrow, and the
Yes,
next?
of course,
Yes?
yes. Yes, I want to, I like an angel with the wand. I want to shower love to everyone.
Okay.
Yes, I commit myself. Yes, seriously.
Okay. So I want you to keep that in mind because we're going to use it later, okay?
Okay.
Does anybody else want to share their
their sense of self, their own sense of identity?
I would like to. I actually have no expectations of anyone, no matter what I do for them.
Okay. So I am selfless. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Perfect. So you're a selfless being who gives and gives and gives and does not expect anything in return, because you're just giving because you have so much. You understand how whole and complete you are, and that you are so connected to the divine force that you are overflowing like a fountain. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
I think I've had expectations of everyone because you do so much for them, but then I let that go and not expecting. I do from what I feel I can do for someone, but then not expect anything in return from them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's important to get into that stage of releasing expectations and the
Correct.
desire to get something from others. Yeah. Anyone else?
I am a happy soul.
Yes, you're a happy soul. And can you expand that just a little bit so that it actually what and how do you want to express that in the world?
Radiating it with whoever's around me, being as positive as I can in every situation.
That's fantastic. So that's a commitment. So think about these phrases as contracts you're making with yourself, right? You, out of the freedom of will, you've chosen these words to represent who you want to be and the qualities that you want to represent in the world, right? So most of the time we're told who to be, how to be. So now you are creating your own sense of self. You're creating the stage for your mind to operate easily, without confusions, without anxieties, without worries. Okay, and this is a commitment that you're making, so you can always return to it. So whenever you have confusion in your life, you can always say, oh, but I am a happy soul, and guess what, let me find the joy in the situation. Let me revisit the situation, and let me find that happiness in there. There must be a little lesson, a little gift in there that's for me. Okay, that's how it works. The commitment serves as an anchor for you to return whenever you lose your way. And so creating the stage for your mind to operate out of effectively, right? With ease. Would anybody else like to share theirs?
Yes, I'm the loveful soul. And to explain a little bit more on this, when I started doing this practice, the intentions behind this was for forgiveness. So anybody comes in my mind with my past experience, sometimes I forget it, but actually it was not happening. So I started including love. That helped me, no matter what the past experience is, but at the moment I start radiating a love, true love for that person's from inside. That started releasing the kind of uh, between past memory that has experience, and then it started feeling good. And finally, I experienced that now I have not that much of hardness when it's just come in the mind. So that's how the love I started practicing. I had prior some sessions on this forum itself. From there, I learned, and then I applied in my own experience for the forgiveness, and that's how I every day in the morning meditations I bring the soul in front of me and I send the love, no matter what has happened in the past experience. I'm sending a true love, and that helped me in forgiveness, and that release my stress. So that's how I can say that I'm a loving soul.
So that's something for you to then take on as your commitment to always be loving and also always forgive. So having the ability, the power to forgive the world for whatever it's doing. Forgive anybody who's doing wrong. Forgive the politician who's saying the wrong thing. Forgive anybody who has harmed you or hurt you in the past. To forgive them is to forgive yourself. So it's this beautiful thing that that the world needs at the moment: forgiveness, a sense of love, a deep love. So yes, so that's your commitment to do, and we're going to use these commitments in other exercises in a little bit.
Okay.
Would anybody else like to share theirs?
Contentment. Yes, I will. I'm a beginner, and I just want to say I feel I am a pure, happy soul, and I'm trying to be learning from this is calmness, because I used to have a lot of anxiety and excitement, but since I'm doing, here with this, I'm being really what you call a loving soul and calm, calmness in me.
That's wonderful. Yeah, so that's your commitment in terms of your gifts. So these
Yeah.
things that you've chosen is what we refer to as my speciality.
Yeah.
So my speciality, it's the thing that just automatically comes out for you, that it's a natural quality that comes up, that's a natural quality that you want to share with others. That's what you want to bring to the world. So that's the world benefactor aspect, is that this is the benefit I bring. I bring forgiveness, I bring love, I bring calm, right? So that's your power. Another way of looking at that quality is, this is my power. So keep
Yes.
that in mind. That's your power.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Contentment.
In the chat. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say, just a minute. Contentment. Can you hear it?
Yeah. Contentment is a wonderful thing because you can be applied to any situation. I am content even when they're screaming. I am content even when they're angry. I am content even when they insult me. I am content because I am immobile. I cannot be moved out of my contentment by the external influences. I remain eternally content. It's a wonderful power. Harini, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in the chat box, someone wrote, "I'm a powerful soul in bringing balance in everyone." But there was it was followed by the question, how to make a soul powerful.
Ah, how to make the soul powerful. Well, here's something really wonderful. The soul is already powerful naturally. So what we need to do is create the relationship with ourselves, I, the soul, that actually connects us to the power. So how do we do that? Meditation is a wonderful way. It's a wonderful tool to connect to that original pure experience of ourself, and also to that absolute natural powerful energy that we are. So the soul is already powerful. So all I need to do is create the connection to myself so that I can connect to my natural power. And how do I create the space in meditation? I start being courageous to, when I go into silence, to when I go into meditation, I become courageous enough. I practice courage to face whatever shows up. So if anything is troubling me, if anything comes up that needs to be healed, balanced, then I put a little bit of attention, I give it some energy.
and I think about healing that, and I correct whatever needs correction. And as those things clear away, that sense of power will absolutely increase. Okay? Because think about it as all these negative experiences and all this waste, all this dirt that we're carrying inside of us is like fog. It's like a fog. And that fog, the mountain is still behind the fog. So the mountain has not changed its shape, it has not changed its power, but the fog doesn't allow me to experience or see the mountains clearly. So all this stuff that needs to be cleared up in ourselves is like fog that does not allow us to connect or experience the power, the love, the bliss, the peace. So that's why in meditation we need to begin the process of cleaning all that out of the way so that the fog can be blown away from, so we can actually see clearly. So that's how we can increase our power and connect to that natural space of being powerful. I hope that answered the question. Anyone else? Harini, go ahead. Did you want to add something?
No, and that was the only additional thing I saw in the chat box. So it confirmed that that question was answered. A very powerful explanation.
So that's why we are here, because we are in search of returning to our sense of calm. And it's not because it's not there. So you see the entire circle there with purity, love. It's actually already in us. So today, the majority of people are searching for love in websites, wherever they need to find love, right? Because they feel that they have to be with another soul in order to experience love. But love is already it's a natural phenomena. It's a natural power within the soul. All of these qualities are natural within every one of us. But because of the fog that separates us and does not allow us to fully connect to it, we start to think that those qualities are somewhere outside of ourselves. So the wonderful message for today is that I am a whole. I am whole. Everything that I look for, that I'm trying to receive from the outside world, is already within me. Love, happiness, freedom, self-confidence, respect, humor, wisdom, faith. All those things are actually already, they're natural to the soul. And that's why it's very important to, in that meditation, to really to surrender into myself, to surrender into that experience so that you can connect to all these beautiful qualities that you already are. So we'll move on to the next aspect of this. So keep that in mind. Keep your phrases. Who am I? So answer the question. Don't take it from somebody else. Create who I am, who I choose to be. That's within your power. I choose to be X. That's my commitment. I choose to take on X quality. That's my commitment. So remain aware of your spiritual powers. Remain aware that all these powers are already within you. Now you have to connect to them and exercise them. Make them more powerful by using them. Live your guidelines for being clean and pure. So what does that mean? Live your guidelines for being clean and pure. It means live what you say you are. So those little phrases, that little phrase of I'm a loving being, I am a happy being, I am content being, I am whatever it is that you tell yourself you are, be it. Okay, don't allow yourself to break your own rules. Suffering and disharmony comes when we break the rules we create for ourselves. So let's not create any disharmony. Let's live what we say we are, be aligned with our beliefs. We be alive and be connected through commitment to those beliefs that you say that you represent. Okay, it's very important. So setting the stage means I am setting the stage. I know who I am. I know what I want to create inside of me. I am also learning about my internal tools, powers. And more importantly, I also understand who I want to and choose to be to the world, right? So I'm setting the stage. Are there any questions before we move on to the next topic? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some brief exercises where we're going to take the perspective of soul conscious process as a means by which to take charge of the mind. Okay, so we're using the perspective of I, the soul, from the perspective of the soul, and we're going to create, how does this actually help us create a mind that is powerful and stable and fearless, and with the understanding of its own capacity. So we're going to actually, the first step we already played around with. So anchor myself, be fully connected and present. And by being fully connected and present, what does that mean? So we're going to go into exploration of what does that mean? Anchor myself. Right? So if I want to create the right condition in the mind, I have to anchor myself, be fully aware, connected to the present. And what's in the present? Myself. I am here. I am present. How are you present? Do you understand who you are and your qualities that you're bringing to the table? Right? So that's how it means. Fully, it's not about just being here in space and time, but it's actually being here, present to yourself, in the awareness of self. So intake. Choose the right filters to look through and discern what I allow in and how I receive. It's very important. It's not just about being present, and it's not just about knowing what's the influences that are coming through but it's actually being in the position to choose what you allow in. So it's not just this automatic thing that's happening. I am a sponge and I'm just absorbing everything that comes my way. No, you are a conscious being who has the power to choose what you take in. But more importantly too, it's not just the way what you take in, but it's how you receive it, right? So it's not just a matter of taking in, but it's how am I going to receive it? Am I going to receive it with anger? Am I going to receive it with discomfort? Or am I going to receive it tenderly, lovingly? So being in the awareness of what I choose to allow into my system, and also how I receive it, the quality of my receiving is very important. So internalizing. So when things come at us, it's not just it cannot be an unconscious act. So all this has to be in the awareness that when things come in, when I receive something, I choose to let something in and I receive it, immediately my entire system, because I am a creator, I start to create with it. So I start to interpret, analyze, and I start to create a story about how I understand this experience, this situation, and that's an internal process. At that point, when it's already inside, it has nothing to do with the facts of what happened, but it has gone through your system and of analysis of understanding. So you created an understanding based on your own internal world about the situation, and you create a story that explains what you understand, right? And then the action. So based on this understanding, I am going to take action. So if I have a horrible understanding of it, what's going to happen is you're going to have a horrible action that's going to follow. So, but because we are committed to what we say we are and committed to these beautiful qualities and the beautiful being that I am, I'm going to assure that I remain that beautiful, contented soul. And I'm going to take that beautiful story and I'm going to look at how it can bring contentment to myself and to anybody involved. Right? So I'm going to create an action that represents my contentment, my quality of contentment. So I'm going to organize it. I'm going to take care of really creating the action that represents this quality of contentment, that represents me and how I choose to be in the world. So nothing about living is automatic. Everything about living involves my choice. It's a conscious, so living in a conscious living, it means that I am in the awareness that I'm breathing, that every breath is an expression of myself. And then at the end, which is very important, is how do I store these experiences? So it's not just about the stories I'm creating based on what I let in and how I receive it, and based on how I identify myself, but it's also about the story, being mindful of my perception, interpretation, understanding. Because it is in that, after the action is created, it is that which will be stored away and becomes a memory. So I have to take care that this entire process is done with awareness. And the awareness that I am a soul. So conscious means the awareness that I am a soul in action. That's what it means. So consciousness is I am in the awareness of myself as a soul who is taking action in the world. Does anybody have any questions before I move forward? Okay, so it's very important that we begin to really understand what spirituality means. It's not a stagnant or a space of just being directed. It's not a space of just simply believing. It's a space of actually creating an inner dialogue, an inner discussion, and with not only yourself but with the realm above, right? It is a very active space. Spirituality is full of action. It's full of play, right? Because if we become too serious in this act of creating consciousness, in this act of being active, then what happens is the joy may be sucked out of being spiritual. And we want to maintain that sense of play, the sense of change, the sense of energy, the sense of enthusiasm. So these actions, this sense of awareness, actually increases my enthusiasm. So take inventory of your state of mind. Take inventory of your state of mind. And how is it in this particular practice that we take inventory of our state of mind is this tool that we use called traffic control. And traffic control, all you're doing is you're basically, again, you're becoming present, right? The first step is I become present to what is. But not only what is outside in space and time, but what is inside of myself, which is most important. So I use this moment to stop and look, witness. And what is it that I'm witnessing? I'm witnessing all these layers of action, these layers of influence that I actually, every moment is full of these layers, and I am in total unaware. I have no awareness of it a lot of times. I just think that, there's an action and then there's me. But in fact, there's a lot of things that are happening. Becoming aware of these things that could be influencing you is very important. And also the state of your affairs, right? The state of your intention. So the majority of people who are in any space of suffering or confusion or anxiety find themselves in the space of being preoccupied with roles or labels and what someone else might think, feel, or do in relationship to you, to the way you think, the way you feel, the way you communicate, the way you live, right? So I am preoccupied with my role as a father, as a mother, as a sister, as an attorney, as a woman, a man. So I'm preoccupied with these roles and labels and what someone else might think, feel, or do. My perception of what I need to do to make others happy. So I'm moving away from what meditation and awareness is supposed to do, which is I'm moving out, I'm looking out. So so in traffic control, I come to the moment and I say, I'm being present. Am I looking out or am I looking inward? Am I involved with these roles and these distractions of life? Or am I actually looking internally for the things that are valuable to assure that those things that are valuable for me spiritually are in place? So am I in the state of being conscious of my body and forgetting that I am actually not the body, but I am a soul? So what state am I? What state am I in this particular moment? Am I in that state of integrated self where I am fully integrated into my original being? I understand my spiritual tools? Or am I too caught up with the past or something about the present that is calling something else from the past, like memories? Am I caught up with the past in my memories, my stories I've created internally? And now I'm beginning to relive them. So I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling all these feelings that have nothing to do with the moment. Can I actually tell what is a fact, what is real, and what is false? What is my perception, my perception, my story about it, and what is real? Do I understand the power of these roles that I've taken on in this life and how they affect me? Am I operating out of this role in this particular moment? Am I operating out of values or virtues? What's my world right now? Where am I? Who am I? What's the condition of my awareness? What am I focused on in this state of awareness? Am I being driven by my senses that are sending information to my brain, to the brain? How am I experiencing the world? So that moment of traffic control, that moment of stillness, that moment of going into meditation literally is a space where you say to yourself, I am this. So in case I've forgotten, let me remind you, I am this. Let me remind myself. So I am remembering. So the idea of remembering has many meanings, but in this particular sense, it's I'm remembering who I am. I am remembering what is important to me. And I am remembering my commitment, who I say I am and who I say I want to be in terms of my qualities. And I forget everything else because all of that is distraction. All of that, if it's not created with properly, creates suffering. So where am I? So that's why traffic control becomes very important. It allows me to remain in that stillness of myself, in that clarity, in that purity of my own sense of who and what I am and how it is that I want to be. Does anybody have any questions regarding this image or anything that's coming up for you? It's very important for this whole process. Does anybody have an experience that they've been dealing with that has to do with this sense of confusion or this sense of uncertainty as to how to deal with it because of conflict of interest or conflicts that you see in possible ways of thinking? Anyone?
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Um, sometimes I listen to you, what you say, and I try to practice that. But then sometimes it's hard because other influences, whether it's your family members, like they want you to become a certain way. They push you in that direction. You want to be this way. And how do I remind then your tongue, you get upset and then you just say what comes to your mind. How do I control that? Or how do I see that when you know what I mean? In that moment, it's hard to, you forget. So yeah. I don't know, maybe
your name is Nita?
Yes.
So Nita, I have a question for you. What was that quality that you chose in the first exercise? Were you here for the first exercise, which is?
I know I missed it, but I've heard part of it before. Kind of. So with the wheel, right? You're talking about the wheel, right?
If you were to choose one of those qualities to represent who you choose to be in the world, which one would it be?
Loving.
Loving. Okay, so here's the loving way that you can actually proceed in accepting that others have this expectation of you, a desire for you, and a way of being loving towards that and still remaining within your space. So it's all about love, they say. So it's all about love. Because I love myself, and I love myself enough to remain in my commitments that I make to myself. I know I am a loving being who, because I love, I accept, and I do not judge anybody else for the way they think or feel or do. I am love. I accept those who speak that I should or should not in a loving way. I accept you for who you choose to be. I listen to what you say that I should or should not be, but I choose to remain in love with myself, committed to the way I choose to live because of the freedom that I was born with, that I exercise on a daily basis. Every day that I breathe, I live in that love of freedom. I am a bird that soars up high. I am light as a feather because I am not bound by the heaviness of any thought that goes against my will to live in that loving, loving, special way. I accept you for who you are. And whether you accept me for who I choose to be, I love you as I love myself to continue doing what I feel is right for me. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I have to keep practicing and meditating and reminding myself that, because sometimes you do that and then people say stuff or it's directed at you, and then the ego. So that is probably the problem.
Yeah.
That I realize, because I see it afterward, and then I feel angry with myself that why did I get sucked into it? Does that make sense? Because you realize it and you want to respond better, but I mean, it's gotten better over time, of course, over the years, but I want it to even be perfect. You know what I mean? It should not, Maneki, I was going to talk to you in Hindi, meaning I should not be unstable in my mind. That's important. Meaning that nothing anybody says, even something coming at me, should not make me, when somebody's in meditation, deep meditation, your mind should not waver 1 ounce, and no judgment at all. I want to be to that perfect, and I'm striving for. Does that make sense? Sorry.
Yeah. So as you strive to that sense of perfection that you describe, I want you to add another rule to experiment with in terms of your commitment to yourself. So add to yourself. So not just love. So I am a loving being who never takes anything personally. And when you stop taking things personally, it actually allows anybody to say or do their thing without you ever being touched. So add that so that becomes part of your practice of literally on a daily basis, be conscious of the fact I never take anything personally, right? Nothing is being told to me in a way that reflects me. That's just whoever's speaking, it's whatever they're doing is a reflection of them, and that's okay. Whatever they feel, whatever they think is just what they feel and what they think, and it has nothing to do with me, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to keep checking inwardly to make sure that I'm the best person I can possibly be, and that's going to be sort of my scale to assure that I'm in the right direction. So just add that little extra quality. I am a person who is free from taking things personally, right?
Okay.
Free
Yes.
from being judged.
Brother G,
Yes.
Brother G, yeah, we don't take it personally. I totally agree with her. But if we have been like, okay, somebody points out and say, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Do I remain silent? Or
Yeah, exactly.
what do I do? What do I do if I'm not guilty? And I'm not the only person to be blamed. If there are 2 or 3 persons witnessing 2 children, example, 2 children fighting, and all of a sudden the head of the department come and say, oh, what were you doing? And pointing only at me. Do I speak back? I am loving. I don't want anything. I don't, not to the director, not to anybody do I want. And especially because I love myself. I had to love myself before, because I don't want to get angry. I don't want to go off the cliff. But somebody pointing at you for nothing, and only am I to be, do I take that, accept that accusation? Okay, I maintain myself with my love. Okay, love for the person for sure, because we are in union with God. Okay, bless her. But do I speak out to say, no, I am not, I didn't see, I was not aware of it? Or do I swallow it up? What do I do? Living in a human world, it's not easy, Brother G.
Yes. So one of the things that we practice a lot is we stop creating excuses for what I cannot do. So what we do is we create encouragement for what needs to be strengthened. So we stop saying, it's difficult for me to do this, or it's not possible, I'm working on it, because those things create limitations in our process. So the best thing to do is to create the habit of creating the possibility. So saying, I am doing amazing at taking the next step towards perfection, right? So it's still it still keeps your enthusiasm, but it does not create the sense of excuse. And because whenever we excuse a wrong something that we don't feel is right for ourselves, it actually decreases our power. So just making sure that we understand that. So, you know, we are very creative people. We're very creative souls. Souls are naturally creative. So use your creativity to create the right language, because the language that I use creates my world, contributes to the way I experience my world. So just be very careful with that. And then to answer the question, one of the other things that we do in terms of the practice is sometimes silence is the right path, because first of all, if you did not do anything, what is it that you're going to defend, right? So if I didn't do anything wrong, what is it that I'm going to defend? Somebody, the person who's speaking, who is accusing or doing whatever they need to, is probably upset, and therefore is reacting to the situation, and therefore it's also indicating that they're not fully clear. They're not fully seeing the situation clearly. So what I want to do is, as you said, you want to create a sense of peace, of calm, of loving, right? So what is the most loving thing that one can do when somebody is out of themselves, is being reactionary? You can see clearly that whatever they're saying has nothing to do with you, because they're just in reaction to a situation. So it sounds to me like a beautiful way of harmonizing a situation like that would be to, exactly as you indicated, remain silent in that vibration of love, sending that vibration to change the environment that you're experiencing. And to that vibration will touch the soul. Pure vision, the idea of pure vision. So when we have pure vision, it actually, when we hold it so powerfully, what happens is it begins to affect the other soul, the other and especially when we remain silent. When we remain silent, you become volcanic. And that.
So silence is, I'm sorry to interrupt. So silence is not a form of weakness then, right?
No, that is no. So
some people take advantage of your silence, you know
so
what I mean?
for a yogi, it's the opposite. It's a true sign of power, that you're not being moved by the situation, and you're remaining, you're cultivating your inner state of calm, your inner state of peace, your inner state of love. Right? So as a yogi, it means completely different thing.
Okay, I have another question for you. I'm sorry, I don't know if you're able to answer this or not, but it's beyond the scope of this class. So sometimes, your children, now they were little children, it was different. You could discipline them and you could tell them no, because, don't touch that, or it's not good. And you could reason with them. It was a different age. And I said so, and that's it, because you're the parent. But now it gets to a point where they become not quite independent, but they're young adults. So how, and sometimes, especially with the different cultures, even though I'm Indian culture, they're in the American culture, they're Indian, but the thinking mentality, because the way I was raised, my parents raised me, even I was raised here, is very different. And the time was different, of course, no technology. So how do you deal? Sometimes it's hard to deal with that. Or how do I teach this to my children without being lecturing, or because I want that spiritual, because like I told you, when it happens, I realize it, and then I can still step back and look and reflect, because I'm much older now. But how do I instill this in them now so they don't deal with it when they're my age, or they're already ahead of the game? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one of the main ways of teaching is being an example of whatever it is that you want to um,
Mhm.
give over to someone. So I have to become the so what is it that you're trying to teach them or
So
give
suppose
them?
they argue, the brother and sister argue about something silly, and then I try to tell the other person, "Oh, you be a better person," or I mean, just little things, just like that. But they're like, "Well, they did like this," and then it's hard to like what you tell me, right? I listen to you because of my age, and I'm willing to listen, and yes, I'm loving. And they're like, "Oh, mom, do you know what I'm saying? I want to instill this that they are a soul." Does that make sense? Like, how do you that
Yeah.
spiritualness?
So the most powerful way that I know to create a connection in terms of learning is to literally commit to being the example of whatever it is that I want. So in this particular instance, you're talking about being respectful towards each other, right?
Yes, example,
And
yes,
also to being accepting of each other no matter what's happening, and to
exactly.
have a sense of brotherhood or family. So there's a lot of issues. The main thing to take into consideration in these kind of situations is just simply being the example of those qualities,
Mhm.
and also understanding that all you can do if you're going to speak and give advice is to share your perspective in the most loving way without a need for them to either listen or to give or to become what you are advising them to become, and to allow them the freedom to make the choice. And as you create this kind of this relationship in terms of the way you relate to them, what happens is that they will not only increase their respect towards you, but they will also their trust in you. Because what happens is that although they may seem like they're not listening, a lot of times it shows up in the situations where it counts.
Mhm.
So,
Yes, that's true. Yes.
so just trusting that you are doing your best as a parent to be an example, but also just gently and kindly with respect and acceptance of whatever they choose to do, to deliver whatever message you need to deliver in order to inspire them, right? And so never inspired through fear
Right.
or
No.
control, but inspired through the sense of allowing somebody the freedom to choose, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a different time when our when our parents said, say do as is, and we did, but now it's a different time. There's not, fear is not the right way. I definitely agree. Definitely.
Yeah. The times in terms of humanity, in terms of the mechanics of being human, haven't changed very much throughout the
Right.
ages. It's
Right.
all, it's really wonderful how these things have being human, and the awkwardness of being in that human experience has not changed very much. That's why we find ourselves in the conditions that we find ourselves in today in this
Yes.
confusing times.
Yes.
There is another question in the chat box.
Okay.
You may have already addressed it, but I wanted to give you a chance to add any comments.
Okay.
It says people use and manipulate the person who is selfless and loving. They get their things done by misusing a good person. Are we giving the way for them to grow in that way instead of changing them?
I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah. So here's the for all of you who are kind and loving and feel that you've been unjustly taken advantage of or used. What's the reason for you to be loving and giving and supportive and generous? Is it to get a return, or is it just because it comes from your heart purely? So the intention behind that is the answer to the question. So one must become clear
and pure about the intention in which one delivers or offers something to another.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
So I heard a quote because I listened to Oprah and she interviews for Super Soul Sundays, and I can't remember the speaker's name, but I think a couple of people have said this: the sun doesn't ask the earth like, oh, how did I do my job today, or how was it, or you're not being kind to me, or I've heard other people say that, oh, the trees don't say, well, I'm not going to give you shade because you were unkind to me. They do their job. They're constantly the same. Just to add to that.
So so conscious living is exactly that. I am a so conscious being who gives, period, without an expectation. I am a so conscious being who's pure in thought, who expresses purity in thinking and feeling and in doing. So that's who I am. I am a tree, right? I am the sun. So I am a soul whose sole reason for existing is to give, is to be charitable, is to be pure, is to be kind, is to be peaceful, is to be responsible, is to be respectful, is to be loving, to be gentle, to be kind, to be creative. So I can only be who I am. And that's the power of saying I am this and then being that. Right? So the tree doesn't need to commit to it, but we as human beings, because we have consciousness and the choice and awareness, we then have to constantly be in that commitment to that choice of who I am. So nobody ever takes it. So karma doesn't work that way. So whatever karma works very simply, that which I give shall come back to me. So those people who are not creating the right relationship with you, that's their karma. They're creating a negative karma. And if you're doing the beautiful giving and generosity with purity, then that is your karma and that's what shall be returned. So the law of karma is very simple, and it deals with the purity of the intention in which I create. I hope that answers the question.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have any other questions or anything more or can we move on?
But to add a little more, you're right, Brotherji. Of course, these people who point at you, they are going through some sort of insecurity and they're not happy even with all the money around. And then some want to show that, okay, I own this much and I am the boss and things have to happen my way. So I think their sense of insecurity or whatever they feel, they try to highlight on us, and like we are at the bottom. And so maybe we make ourselves strong and take into consideration what you've been telling us up to now. Thank you, Ji. Thank you so much.
Yeah, pure vision is very helpful. It creates the environment where I am never going to be low. My state of awareness will never be lowered by someone else. So I remain in constant state of my choice. Right? I remain in purity, I remain in love, I remain in contentment. So it's easy, right? Easy.
Easy. That's why
right.
we are with the family.
That's right. We keep the not only the idea, but more importantly, the experience of it being easy. So it makes it playful, makes it joyous. So that's why it's important. There are many influences in the external world that can come into our system. And that's why we have to be very selective as to what we allow in. So anchor yourself in soul consciousness, clear and pure self-awareness. So I will remain clean and pure in terms of how I identify myself. What's my identity as a spiritual identity? I, the soul. And when you remain in that pure spiritual identity, the 8 powers of the soul begin to awaken. So you see, everything that's inside of you that is been sleeping becomes awake, when you begin to consciously live. And then what happens is that you just naturally begin to increase the power of your virtues, which then spread and start coloring the world. So it's very simple. If I remain firm in what I say I am, and I remain committed to being that in my living, then I will see and notice the difference in the world. Right? So as I transform, the world transforms. And I'm playing a very important role in that. So in terms of, using the lens, so we've used some experiences. So how can I use that lens? So discern what you allow to enter and how to receive it, how it's received, right? So even before something, even before you look, you have to take the time to say who is looking, who is speaking, who is listening. So I, the pure soul, I, the loving soul, am seeing the world. See how those filters work? So now I am filtering what the information that my senses is bringing into me. And I am saying, I only allow things that are pure and clean and respectful and happy and this. So anything that's dirty that has the ability to pollute my internal space, I don't let in. Whether it's something visual, something in terms of toxicities, right? So I'm respectful because my instrument is the body, and without the body, I cannot express myself. So I have to be respectful of that body. And so anything that's going to be a pollutant for the body will be a pollutant for me too. Anything that is toxic in terms of noises, words that's coming in, I don't allow them in, right? Because I represent the wheel of virtues, and that's the only things that are coming into me. And so I'm also filtering the situations so that they come in clean. And I do the same thing. When I am going to create an action, I'm going to create it with the color of one of those virtues, whatever I committed to. So it's very simple action. If I remain firm in who I am, I understand my powers, the virtues. I understand how to use them, and then how to apply them. So even before the eye looks out, I become aware that I, the soul, the pure soul, is looking out through these eyes. See how practical it is? So before anything gets fed into the soul through the sense organs, I discern whether it's something that is worthy of coming into my system. So it's about worthiness. Do I feel this is worthy for my well-being, my harmony, my purity? Does that make sense to everyone? So I anchor myself, I understand my qualities, and I understand how I am functioning in relationship to the body, and then how I'm relating to the external world. So consciousness allows me to remain in that state of awareness where I know who I am, my properties, my qualities, and then what I can bring into the world and what I can receive from the world. See, if I keep that flow nice and clean, then my internal space will remain nice and clean. And that's where meditation comes in, because meditation allows you to remain in the power, to remain in the choice of being true to yourself. And that's a very powerful state to be powerful enough to remain true to what you say you are. I am a pure soul, a loving being who listens with peace in my ears. Peace listens through me. Any questions? So the other important step in terms of, creating that mindful cause. So most of us, we need to stop being in that sense that something outside is acting on me, is causing on me. So instead of something outside is causing on me, is I am being mindful of how I create internally and then how I cause on the world. So right? So I'm basically working inside out. Before, influences were impacting me and they were causing me to go cuckoo, right? A little nutty, a little bit off, a little anxious, a little worried. But now I'm changing that play and I'm going inside out through soul consciousness, and I'm changing the game. So I'm keeping the internal experience clear and pure. So create beautiful moments that will become empowering memories. To understand, so one of the reasons why at the beginning I showed you in the biology of the human brain where the soul would sit is so that you understand the mechanics of what's happening, so that you become clear that the soul does exist and where it is, so that there is no thought about whether it does or it doesn't, whether I am or I'm not. So the more I understand about the condition of who I say I am, the stronger my faith, the stronger my enthusiasm, the stronger my power. So remember that in the moment, always understand that that moment will become a memory. So keep in mind that how you're bringing something in and how you're deciding to create a story about it will affect you later. So it's not just about this incident in front of you. It's going to come and go. No, what happens is this moment comes and then it stays with you. Remember, it gets stored away as a memory, as a sanskar. So make sure that those memories, those stories that we are creating, those perceptions are going to be beneficial for you and everybody else involved. Because if they're not beneficial for you and everyone else involved, what happens, that story becomes a nightmare that haunts you for years to come. So how am I interpreting, perceiving this moment? And how am I creating with it becomes very important. So in the state of creating the right stage, the right awareness, I become aware that this moment and how I process it will become very important in the way it's stored and then how it affects me in the future. So I want to create, and I want to create the condition for this moment to be beautiful, to be full of power, so that that power, that beauty can then be stored away. And instead of being a nightmare or a cause for distress, it's actually something that empowers me and that increases my power, right? It increases my power, it increases my capacity. So does this story benefit everyone involved? Make sure that the answer is yes. Everybody's going to feel love. Everybody's going to feel harmony. Not because the conditions, as some of you have described, are not disturbing, but because I've turned that disturbance into something beautiful. So I, as a soul, have the power to transform situations. So does it represent who I want to be in the world? So the other aspect of how I deal in this particular moment, does it represent the qualities that I am committed to? Does it represent the qualities I say I am? So does it represent who I believe I am and what I believe I want to do and be in the world? Does anybody have any questions? And this aspect is very specific. This is very powerful for those who have memories, who create disturbance, who create anxiety and worries. And so this is a way of then harmonizing it. So you take that memory, and in meditation, you look and to see what's happening. What was my interpretation of that particular event? And then you take that and you say, I created this. I have the power to change it. And then you reinterpret that scenario that is stored away, and you say, okay, this is how I can harmonize it. This is the way it needs to be rewritten to bring benefit to me and to empower me. And this is what I need to do. This is the action I need to do in order to create forgiveness for myself and forgiveness for others. And this is what I need to do in order to fix that karma with that person. And sometimes it's not an aspect of them answering and say, I forgive you. No, it's an aspect of you forgiving yourself and taking the steps necessary for you to release that story. So when you're going through this process of cleaning up old stories, old memories that are causing disturbance, you don't even have to hear from the person that this situation is about. It's simply about you fixing it inside of your mind, inside of your own space, so that you can then experience the sense of stability and harmony again. So it's a form of healing. I hope that any questions?
Yes, brother, one more. Please, I
Uh-huh.
need a clarification because I understand that we need to forgive ourselves first to forgive others first. But at the same time, where I also heard that suppose if you are sitting in a meditation, you can elevate yourself and talk to soul. In this way, you can.
Yeah, so there's many ways of creating the healing, and that is a powerful way of doing it. So in fact, you do bring the soul in front of you, or you create a soul to soul connection where you create the conversation, energetic conversation with them. Internally, you're churning whatever it is that you need to express to them, and that is enough, because it's the same act as if somebody had troubles with somebody and then they wrote a letter excusing or apologizing or correcting the situation and then took that letter and burned it. So it's basically you're going through the process of releasing the energy that's involved, the negative energy that's involved in that particular situation, and you're releasing it. You're releasing it from internally remaining inside of you and causing disturbance. So that there are many ways of creating healing, and that is a very powerful way of healing a relationship by actually creating a soul-to-soul communication or exchange. And that's one of many other ways of creating that space for healing. Yes.
And it can work in any relation, like the boss in the
Any relationship, absolutely, because we're all souls and we all have the same function. So spiritual laws are the same for every soul.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? So this brings us to the end, and I actually, so take charge. Remember to anchor yourself
become into the awareness of who you say you are. Take in only that which is useful to you in a way that you can receive it that brings benefit. Create a story about this particular present moment in a way that actually will be stored away as a memory that will empower and add beauty to yourself. So don't create an internal story that actually creates nightmares, creates disharmony. So in the moment, be aware enough to create the right actions, the right thinking, the right feeling, so that the story can reflect that beauty. And then take the actions that are representing the qualities of who and how you want to be in the world, right? Make that commitment to make that, whatever it is that you said, I am a loving being, I am a pure being, I am content being. Live that, be true to it, reflected by being the example with every action that you take, so that every moment can be stored away as a beautiful memory that brings you power. I hope that brings us to the end. And I think this was recorded, so anybody who is interested in a review or whatnot, you can do so. I also want to invite anybody who's already a Merli student. We do have Merli reviews on Thursdays. Sorry, forgive me, not on Thursdays, but on Tuesdays at 7:30 in the evening. For anybody who has the time or would like to churn the Merli, it's a very interesting dialogue where people share their experience, and it's a going back and forth dialogue. So it's a fun experiment with the Merli and connecting to it in strong, beautiful
Is
ways.
that only one day, brother, or?
Yeah,
every time?
it's just on Tuesdays at 7:30. So if you can make it, great. And if you have a request for something different, you can also make it at the office, at the center.
Center, okay.
And so thank you all for taking the time, for staying on, and for hopefully, but really just take those little exercises, that commitment that you made to who you are and the qualities you want to represent in the world, and make them alive. Be the examples of that in the world. And
Thank you, Brother G. Thank you,
Thank
Brother
you.
G,
yeah,
Om
making
don't
it easy for us to survive.
Thank you.
Om Shanti, everyone.
Om Shanti, Brother G.
Om
Thank you,
Shanti.
brothers.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Om
Om Shanti.
Shanti. Thank you,
Om
Brother
Shanti.
Santi. So as he stated, this was recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel, which the link has been put in the chat box. So that will be posted within the next couple of days. And now we'll be going into our daily evening 1 hour meditation. Thank you all, and Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Shanti. Thank you.